you've heard all day that Kevin Rudd is upset because Australia is not halfway on its way towards a recession. Yes, relatively anemic growth, but still growth means that all of those people that cheer on a recession have to wait another 3 months before starting to speculate about 6 months from then, but okay. But there is a question, though, which is that resources is essentially what is keeping us going, as well as government spending. So is there a need for stimulus? Is there a need for something more than tax cuts? Are we going to get to, sometime between now and the next budget, you know, the $850 cheques being sent around for people to literally go off and buy stuff to try and boost the retail sector, which in and of itself is in trouble right now? It's what the Prime Minister's had to say about these growth numbers that mean the lefties don't get to say there's a recession for at least another 6 months.
The figures that will come out today obviously relate to the June quarter. The tax cuts that we delivered actually happened in July. And I saw one article today apparently claiming that things that happened in June are evidence of what happened in July. Well, that's obviously ridiculous. We will watch closely as the June quarter unfolds, the impact of the measures that we put in place in the budget in May.
I'll put the old economics hat on here. Are we at a point where, look, resources is doing okay, resources is basically keeping us one foot in front of the other? Do you think we're going to get to a point before the budget of the old stimulus checks?
Well, in the June quarter, the expectation was a shortened government, and businesses ran down their inventories. It was like they're having a clearance sale, and they weren't investing anything.
Good point.
So Shorten and his tax plans had everyone petrified of what would happen to their business. So it's not surprising there's a bit of a slump in that quarter. But, you know, the reality is since about 2012, the growth rate has been 2.5% or a little bit lower as it is today. They're not great numbers. So it's not about going back into deficit, pumping up the economy artificially. I think it's a question of productivity, making the economy more efficient. And where has the productivity gone? It's an interesting economic debate. The lefty economists say, oh, well, the problem with productivity is we haven't got enough diversity and inclusion, because then people would feel they belong and they'd innovate. I think it's quite possible. Then when we talk about people living in fear in the workplace, worried about what they can say and do at work, we hear about corporate madness. You know, I attended a lecture last night of Lionel Shriver, the American author visiting, who said that artists have lost their creativity because they live in fear of cultural appropriation. There's a practice among publishing companies now of sensitivity readers. They'll employ black people, transgender, people of certain gender and sexuality to read books in advance to see if there's any trigger warnings and offensive statements in there before the book can be published. So she talks about the lack of creativity in an age of constraint. I think we've gone backwards in innovation and productivity because people haven't got the freedom, the economic and social freedom, to do the things that are creative. You know, there's an age of oppression, and I think it's a dead hand on the economy and a dead hand on society, and it's a factor in why productivity has been so sluggish.
What about a free speech stimulus package, Gary?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Look, Paul, the problem is that you've got 3 of the 4 big banks in Australia won't invest in anything to do with coal. They just won't. I mean, ANZ is the only one, and later this year they may well join this crazy virtue signalling throng that's killing our economy. Add to that all the process-rich, outcome-poor approach of our bureaucracy. We've got the Environmental Protection Biodiversity Conservation Act, this EPBC, which is being interpreted by every bureaucracy in Australia as a dead hand of doing nothing. You've got red tape, green tape, black tape, all of these various processes, and what's happened is we've had a lack of confidence, a lack of cash flow. You've got a drought in Queensland, a drought in New South Wales, and in a place like Queensland, small businesses right along the coast are suffering because farmers aren't confident because they've got no dough, mate. So the whole trick is about government actually not just announcing money they're going to spend, but actually spending the money, spending it. Get on with it. Do stuff.